Doctors suffer because of big corporations as well. Doctors that want to do good, like my husband, operates on someone even though they don't have insurance.
Sunny Hostin, her husband accused of committing federal insurance fraud in a lawsuit. Okay.
Sunny Hostin and her husband, Dr. Emmanuel Hostin, are preparing for a legal battle to fight accusations that he committed federal insurance fraud.
She built her brand on justice. She lectured millions on integrity. But now, the empire of Sunny Hostin is cracking from within. It started with whispers, nothing more than quiet questions and sealed court documents. But by the time the federal's indictment dropped, it was deafening. A $450 million RICO case, nearly 200 people implicated, and right in the center of it all, Dr. Emmanuel Hostin, Sunny's husband. The charges? Insurance fraud, fake surgeries, a multi-state conspiracy going back over a decade. For years, Sunny sat at that table on The View, hammering politicians, grilling CEOs, and demanding accountability. But the moment her world came under fire, the cameras stayed on, and her silence said everything. ABC tried to contain it. Legal teams scrambled. Co-hosts gave vague statements, but it was too late. The internet had already smelled blood, and just like that, the most outspoken voice on daytime television was facing the one thing she never prepared for: her own reckoning. For years, Sunny Hostin cultivated a public image that felt unshakable. A former federal prosecutor turned television host who blended legal analysis with moral clarity. On The View, she wasn't just a co-host. She was the conscience of the panel. Whenever scandals broke, Sunny was the one calling for resignations. When politicians lied, she raised her voice. And when corporations faltered, she demanded accountability, all in front of millions of viewers each week. Off camera, she was part of what many saw as a picture-perfect power couple. Her husband, Dr. Emmanuel Hostin, was a respected orthopedic surgeon in New York.
Kids are okay with
Together,
seeing their
they had
parents
graced
argue
magazine
or
covers,
discuss things.
attended charity
They just want to make
galas,
sure they're not
and
getting
even
divorced.
invited cameras
And so
into
when
their
we
home
are
for
together,
family
Megan and I
interviews.
go at it because she's
It was the
badass
kind
and
of
I am
visibility
too.
that most
And you need to
public
kind of
figures
be like
dream
that to sit in that
until
chair.
it wasn't. The cracks didn't appear on television. They showed up in sealed court documents, years in the making. At the center of it all was the American Transit Insurance Company, one of the largest no-fault auto insurers in New York. For nearly a decade, they had been watching their payouts skyrocket. Dozens of surgeries, hundreds of claims, and when they finally dug in, the results were staggering. What they uncovered was a sprawling web of fraudulent billing, staged car accidents, and unnecessary medical procedures, many of them allegedly performed by doctors in exchange for illegal kickbacks. The case exploded into headlines in early 2025, a massive RICO lawsuit naming more than 190 defendants across the tri-state area: surgeons, chiropractors, clinic owners, and middlemen. But one name in the pile set off shockwaves in media circles: Dr. Emmanuel Hostin. According to the lawsuit, Dr. Hostin was allegedly part of a coordinated scheme to perform, or at least bill for, unnecessary orthopedic procedures on patients, referred through staged accident rings. Some of the surgeries, prosecutors claim, never happened. Others were real, but medically unjustified. The federal filing paints a damning picture that Dr. Hostin received direct financial incentives to participate in the operation. And while he has not been criminally charged as of yet, his inclusion in the civil suit placed his entire career and reputation under scrutiny. Sunny's team issued a brief statement: no wrongdoing admitted, no details denied. Just a claim that the family was focused on the truth and would not comment further. But viewers did, and so did the internet. Clips from The View began circulating, especially ones where Sunny had grilled guests over ethics and demanded transparency in healthcare. One clip showed her calling for doctors who commit fraud to face the full weight of the law. Within days, the video had over 12 million views. News outlets, at first cautious, began to cover the story. Anonymous staffers at ABC leaked that the network was in crisis mode. Producers allegedly pulled pre-recorded promos featuring Sunny. PR teams were instructed not to field media inquiries. And then came the social media blackout. Sunny didn't tweet, didn't go live. And for the first time in her broadcasting career, she wasn't on air. To the public, it looked like a collapse in slow motion. But inside the courtroom, something much faster was unfolding. A coordinated, legal counterattack that threatened to expose even more names and pull in media executives who had long considered themselves untouchable. Because if even a fraction of the allegations were true, this wasn't just about one doctor or one television host. It was about an entire system built on reputation, and how fast that reputation could burn. At first, it was just another civil lawsuit. Big names, sure, but not unusual for the world of high-stakes medicine. ABC executives had seen this play before. They waited, watched, and hoped the headlines would fade. They didn't. Instead, they multiplied. Within 72 hours of the Hostin name surfacing in the federal filing, internal communications at ABC took a sharp turn. Confidential memos were circulated, crisis consultants were called in. One insider described the mood as pure triage. Executives initiated what they called a content integrity review. On paper, it was standard. Behind the scenes, it was a slow-motion purge. Sunny Hostin's access to The View's editorial meetings was quietly revoked. Segments she was scheduled to lead were reassigned. Producers were instructed to minimize her live airtime until legal clarity emerges. It wasn't a suspension, not officially. But in television, silence often speaks louder than firings. Meanwhile, real journalists started doing what real journalists do: digging. What they found was even uglier than expected. A local New York health blogger, long dismissed as fringe, published a list of shell companies allegedly tied to the Hostin referral network. It claimed that a dozen pain management clinics, chiropractic offices, and diagnostic labs across Brooklyn and Queens all funneled patients toward one destination: Dr. Emmanuel Hostin's surgical table. It should have ended there. But 2 weeks later, The Intercept published something that changed everything. A leaked tranche of internal emails from Metropolitan Surgical Group, a hospital management firm. The subject line in one thread read simply: Hostin Volume Bonus. The emails detailed alleged discussions between hospital administrators and a now indicted clinic operator, referring to quarterly incentives based on procedures routed through Hostin-backed referrals. The leak exploded across social media. Hashtags like Narj use Hostin Network, Yarg Ortho Fraud, and most damningly, Wham! SunnyGate began trending on X, formerly Twitter. Satirical memes of Sunny wearing a judge's robe, holding surgical tools, flooded Instagram. TikTok users clipped her most self-righteous rants on The View, overlaying them with headlines from the lawsuit. Then came the audio. An anonymous whistleblower, voice disguised, location hidden, appeared on an underground YouTube channel. He claimed to have worked at a billing center tied to the Hostin network. In the clip, he said, "Everyone knew. Surgeons, lawyers, even insurance adjusters. The game was milk the system. And if you were connected to Hostin, you got a bigger cut." Though unverifiable, the video went viral. Over 4.5 million views in 48 hours. ABC News was paralyzed. They released a brief statement emphasizing commitment to impartial journalism. But by then, the narrative had slipped from their control. External pressure mounted from every direction. one of the most dramatic reversals came from NBC Universal. Sunny had been in early development talks for a limited docuseries about women in law and media, a project she had championed for months. But on a Monday morning, with no press release, NBC pulled the plug. The official reason? Realignment of strategic priorities. Behind the scenes, producers admitted they couldn't risk it, not with this storm brewing. Even longtime allies in media began to distance themselves. Quietly, carefully. And then, for the first time since the scandal began, The View returned to air. The cameras rolled. The music played. But Sunny's seat? Empty. No explanation was given. The other co-hosts avoided the subject entirely. They discussed lighter news, celebrity divorces, a political poll. But viewers noticed the gap. And so did the internet. That night, a composite video titled The Fall of Sunny Hostin hit YouTube. It spliced clips of her most passionate lectures on morality with recent headlines about the lawsuit. The thumbnail simply read, "Judge Not." It got 11 million views in 2 days. For millions of Americans who had watched her for years, defending justice, dissecting politics, and demanding accountability, the reversal felt jarring. Like watching a preacher on trial for sin. Their comment sections grew brutal. She judged America every morning. But when her own house was on fire, she ran. It wasn't just anger, it was betrayal. Some viewers begged her to speak. Others called for her resignation. A petition began circulating to have her removed from ABC entirely. Within a week, it had over 150,000 signatures. But still, from Sunny herself, nothing. No tweets, no statements, no appearances. The silence became its own kind of confession. Back at ABC, the damage control meetings were now happening daily. Not just about Sunny, but about everything. Network credibility, advertising stability, viewer trust, the very pillars of daytime television. Because this wasn't just a scandal about a surgeon or a lawsuit. It was about what happens when the person pointing the finger becomes the headline. And in a world already skeptical of media elites, the fall of Sunny Hostin became symbolic. A perfect storm of fame, secrecy, and public collapse, all playing out in real time. What came next would take it even further because, in the courtroom, attorneys were preparing for a war. And when the discovery phase began, it would threaten to drag even bigger names into the fire.